communicated, at least at a military-to-military level and even at a diplomatic level. And in many ways, that prevented catastrophe. So I'm not saying we're at that stage with China, but what I am saying is it would frankly be reckless and irresponsible for the U.S. and China not to have a relationship, given the impact our countries have on the global economy and on the world.
Did you discuss with China, with Minister Wang Yi, the working group, or any more details of the Board of Trade, Board of Investment?
Yes, we did. Ideas? We did, and we're moving towards implementation of that, and I think that's one of the potential, concrete deliverables that we can have before September when that visit happens. And again, those are good ideas, and they come in the aftermath of the visit we took to China earlier this year, and so we did discuss that, yes.
Russia's Lavrov revealed that he's going to be meeting with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
If that happens, are you going to press him on Ukraine, or are you simply
No, we're going to. I don't know if the term is press him. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, the war in Ukraine, I think, has in many ways impeded the ability of Russia and the United States to find areas of agreement on other topics. That doesn't mean we won't seek to find other areas of potential cooperation. But by the same token, we'd like to see that war come to an end. We think it would be good for Russia if that war came to an end. So we'll raise it. And as I said, the U.S. remains open and willing to play a constructive role in bringing that war to an end if that opportunity presents itself. And it might. We're open to it, to playing that role, because we think right now, and I think the Russians would agree, we're probably the only country in the world that can play that role in trying to bring that to an end.
What kind of role is the U.S. playing right now in doing that? I mean, there's still some kind of quiet talks going on, or outreach?
Well, I think that you've seen kind of fall off a little bit over the last few months. Perhaps there are now new conditions in place that will allow that conversation to happen. It's one of the things we'll explore tomorrow in our conversation. I saw the Foreign Minister Lavrov last night briefly. We didn't talk about any of this, but I saw him last night when he arrived at the opening dinner, and we'll talk more tomorrow. Obviously, to be fair to you guys, I mean, a lot of stuff I'll talk to him about, I'm not going to put in a press release because it undermines the ability to find understandings. But we'll talk about it and see if there's an opening now or an opportunity for us to play a constructive role. But there are other areas that the U.S. and Russia can cooperate on that again, going back to the point I made about China, this is very simple. Russia possesses we are the two largest nuclear armed countries on the planet. For us not to talk would be reckless and irresponsible. We have to have a relationship with the Russian government, even though we have areas of disagreement. And in the case of Ukraine, perhaps an opportunity to, if we can play a constructive role, to bring it to an end. So, I'm sure that'll come up tomorrow, there's no doubt. But we'll talk about some other stuff, too.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump has approved a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. Do you have any details on that?
Yeah, I'll let the White House officials sort of put out an official statement about anything with regards to that. But I saw the same reporting this morning. But let me let that go through. And if I'd prefer it be put out when there is something to say. That we'll say it through official channels.
Has the U.S. asked South Korea or other Asian allies to contribute naval assets or something else?
We didn't ask them that today. Look, I think it's to their benefit, right? If you look at the region, they heavily depend on oil and natural gas that comes from this part of the world. Now, one of the interesting things you've seen is that the supplies that are reaching many of the countries in the region have begun to change. They're buying more LNG from us than ever before. They're also buying more oil from us than ever before. So I think some of the changes you have seen and where people are getting their energy are going to be permanent after what you've seen here. But nonetheless, the Straits remain an important source of energy for many of the countries in this region. It's about 20% of the global oil that's purchased. So I think we think it would be to their benefit to participate in an effort.
Did you make that ask today in these conversations?
We didn't ask directly today, but we've had those conversations with them in the past. Every country has different restrictions on what they need to do in order to authorize that. Some have to get legislative approval. Some can do it unilaterally. Every country is different. But we've certainly raised it with different countries. We don't need them to do it, but we think it would be beneficial if they did. And some of these countries have unique capabilities in terms of mine clearing and things of that nature. So it'd be great if they join the effort, and I think some of them may eventually do so. It's in their interest to do so, but we didn't reach any agreement on that today. Frankly, it wasn't the cornerstone of what our conversations were about.
Mr. A lot of the ASEAN countries have expressed how terrible the war in Iran is for them when it comes to economically and the energy crunch. But Israel's finance minister sort of struck a tone in a different direction, said that the tit for tat is actually the best possible situation for Israel because it's weakening Iran. Does this show that there are some differences between the United States and Israel when it comes to how they view this war? the United States is trying to end this for the Israelis, the hostilities continuing is in their benefit?
Yeah, look, I can't comment on what one individual in government said in Israel. You know, I can just generally tell you that by and large, we think that a nuclear-armed Iran is an unacceptable thing. It can't happen. And that's what they were going to do if they hid behind this conventional shield that they were building, and the president just was going to stand by and allow that to happen. Within 2 years, Iran could say, we're breaking out to a nuclear weapon, you can't do anything about it, or we're going to overwhelm you with tens of thousands of drones and missiles, which they were on pace to build. They can't do that now. That certainly weakened them. As far as the impact it's had on the global economy, I mean, Iran is targeting global shipping and international waterway and demanding to control which ships can go and which ones cannot. That just is unacceptable. We're not going to accept that. We're not going to allow that to be the status quo. But ultimately, there are other countries that should feel just as strongly as we do, because they're actually more impacted by it than we are.
Did you discuss with Minister Jaishankar, did he raise at all any concern by India about the tariffs announced by the president on generic drug makers? A lot of Americans buy their generic drugs from Indian companies that import. Is that something that came up in your discussions at all?
I mean, not with me. I mean, we didn't get into depth on pharmaceuticals today. Obviously, I would expect them to be concerned about it, but they didn't raise it today. But they might have with others in our system, because we obviously deal with the Indians. We're very close to them. So.
Mr. Secretary, you and the president have been very blunt in your anti-communist language. Recently, you put out that recent report on Cuba. Don't you think it's inconsistent in that you haven't addressed the same issues with China? They're the largest communist party in the world, 100 million.
Yeah, but our issues with communist interference inside of our country. Like, that report was about what these different elements do to interfere in our country and to undermine our foreign policy.
The president recently talked about Chinese election interference in the U.S., and as we know, there are many other ways in which China has influence within the U.S.
Well, again, what the president put out on Thursday, that was a declassification of documents from our intelligence community. That's what he put out. He declassified intelligence assessments from our intelligence community. But your question was about communist influence. Yeah, the United States doesn't want to be a communist country. We're never going to be a communist country, and we're not going to allow communist influences to undermine our politics or our society. So I don't know what the inconsistency you're referring to is. It's very clear. Obviously we understand the Chinese system and other systems, but I can tell you our system doesn't want communism, and we're certainly not going to allow communist efforts to undermine American society and drive wedges into our country, and that's what we're seeing. And by the way, one of the leading culprits of that for many years, the intellectual authors, particularly in our hemisphere, is the Cuban regime, which our report on Monday outlined.
Are the Cubans having a bigger impact
Did
than
you
the Chinese?
express concern regarding the clash between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea?
Did we discuss it with?
Clash between China and the Philippines.
और सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस की फितनल खवारिज और फितनल हिंदुस्तान के खिलाफ मुश्तरका ऑपरेशन। बलूचिस्तान में मुश्तरका ऑपरेशन के दौरान 10 खवारिज हलाक हो गए। लाइकुर रहमान मजीद तफसीलात से हमें आगाह करेंगे। लाइक बताइएगा।
सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेज ने बलूचिस्तान के मुख्तलिफ इलाकों में, जिनमें बिलखसूस सोराब और मुस्तौंग के अजला शामिल हैं, वहाँ गुज़िश्ता 48 घंटों के दौरान इंटेलिजेंस बेस्ड ऑपरेशन किए हैं। ये फितना उल हिंदुस्तान और फितना उल खारिज के खिलाफ कार्रवाइयाँ की गई हैं, जिसमें 10 दहशतगर्द मारे गए हैं। सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेज ने जो तफसीलात शेयर की हैं उसके मुताबिक